All right, guys, welcome back to another Upshaw Unfiltered. I'm your host, Andrew Upshaw. Today, guys, we are going to have a very, very special guest on here. He's not here yet. I'm not going to lie to you. He's running a little bit behind, but he's also a really, really busy guy. Our guest today is Brad Fuller. He is the president of the National Professional Fishing League, the league that I fish with. We're going to talk about a lot of different things today. We're going to talk about the new rule change as far as the info rule. We're going to dig into him just a little bit and try to get some information about what's next for the NPFL. Also going to take a look back on some of his military experience and things like that. I really, really like diving deep into that as well. You know, one thing about it, this past week was one of the most challenging / most fun events that I've had in quite some time. Mainly because, going into the tournament, I had a very big expectation on how I was going to catch fish, and that all changed on after day one of the tournament. Day one, I went into that tournament. I knew I needed a good finish. I was sitting in 40th place overall. And when I got to the tournament, though, weather changed. We had a front come in, and I was the last day of practice. I got on this really awesome flipping bite. It was a grass flipping bite, and I really thought I was going to have a chance to have a really, really good tournament. But I was wrong, and that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. But I was absolutely wrong. I went out there the first day and only caught like 9 pounds. Just a little over 9 pounds. And I got lucky that I caught that because I actually, at the end of the day, caught a really good one skipping a dock with a jig. So, knowing that going into the second day, I knew I was going to have to make a change. I had another pattern down the lake away from the grass, and I knew if I went and did it, I felt like the consistency would be there, but I wasn't sure if the weight was going to be there. That second day, I caught a really big one on a buzzbait. I think it was around 3.5, 3 3/4 pounds. It was a really good one. And in a tournament like that, where you're talking about 11, 12 pounds is that deciding factor, you had to make sure either to get a good bite or to be very, very consistent with the bites that you had. And that's kind of where I was at that second day, rolling that buzzbait around, throwing a Strike King tour grade buzzbait. And I was actually throwing a menace on it, Strike King menace grub. And I had a couple of people ask me because I'd had a couple of buzzbait bites that day when other guys that were kind of struggling with the buzzbait. And I really felt like that menace in difference to like throwing a horny toad or a frog on there, a little bit more compact. And the other thing is I felt like those spotted bass were really smallmouth. They would be able to get it a little bit better. And I do believe that helped me get a few of those better than average bites. That second day, though, I once again could not get the flipping fish out of my mind because, once you get a lot of bites and you get a couple really good bites, it kind of sticks there. So after, I had a fairly late check-in at like 3:45 that day. I decided to roll the dice a little bit and go flipping afternoon. So like noon to 3:45, and I literally had one bite the rest of the day. So it was really, really challenging day because, I'm sitting there thinking that I'm going to go out there and just absolutely crush on them. And that was absolutely not the case because I thought if I just got one more bite, I needed to cull one fish really bad. It was like 1.5 pounds. I felt like if I got 1 2.5 to 3 pound bite flipping, that I would be where I needed to be. And that, once again, just didn't happen. They were dropping the water just slightly, but I think it dropped enough just to pull those fish out just a little bit. And I wasn't able to refine those fish. But the third day, that's when things got really, really interesting because I said, you know what? I'm just going down to that lower end of the lake and I'm going fishing. I'm going to see what will happen. That day, I was able to, morning I went down. I didn't get a single buzzbait bite, and I was really, really hoping to get at least one or two. I'd had 2 really big bites on the second day, and I lost one of them. And so I felt like if I threw it until 9 or 10 or 11 o'clock, I'd have one of those big bites. And I only had one bite on a buzzbait, and it was like this big. It was tiny. It was like 12 inches long, 13 inches long. But what I did figure out was I could get bit on docks on a jig and a wacky rig. And I really just locked those 2 baits in my hand the rest of the day and got really, really lucky at the very end of the day on that second day that I was able to catch a really good fish. And so that saved me. I mean, it was like a 3 pounder, a 3 pound largemouth. And the crazy thing about that bite is I skipped that jig up in there, and I felt one like pick it up, and I set the hook, and it pulled my trailer down a little bit, and I reel in real fast, and I look at my trailer, and it's kind of pulled down slightly, and I was like, oh, who cares? And I skip it back in there. The fish eats it as soon as it hits the bottom. Is 3 pounder. So this whole thing about you have to have your trailer perfect and everything, no, that's not accurate, because I caught the best fish of my day with a trailer that was just all jacked up. So because I felt like if I got it back in there super quick, maybe that fish would want to bite again. Coming in the tournament, I was in 40th place, and we kind of done what we, half around the math of what we felt like we needed to get to the championship. I ended up finishing 30th place in the tournament. I felt like I needed a top 40 to actually make it in. And come to find out, I could have finished like 50th, maybe 45th, 50th. I don't know. I do want to show you this real quick. This is a very interesting screenshot. I'll try to zoom it in a little bit, but I'm right there in 37th. So I moved up from 40th to 37th. I had 1,257 points. Scott Suggs had the exact amount of points, and Todd Otten had the exact amount of points. But what I want to show you is right there on that right side, the weights aspect of this. That's how they do their tiebreakers, is the weights. I had 232.04, and Scott Suggs had 232.03. So I literally beat him by 1 ounce, which is just wild. I mean, not that it mattered in this situation, but imagine if I'd have been in 40th or 39th, 40th, and not been able to make the championship. And so that was a big deal for me, was to actually be able to make it. Now, obviously, I didn't know what the weights were going to be going into that event. But what I did know is that I struggled immensely in that tournament and had to adapt. And sometimes it's not as easy to do. So thankfully made the championship. That was obviously the overall goal. And so I just wanted to make sure I had everything rolling and ready to go. But guys, without further ado, we've got Brad Fuller finally made it in. He's only 9 minutes late. I won't hold it against him too much, but here we go. Brad Fuller, welcome in, buddy.
What's up, buddy? Hey, man, I'm sorry. I knew that was going to happen, but glad to be here now. So thanks for waiting on me.
Oh, no, it's all good. It's all good. Hey, well, congrats on finishing out the year strong. Obviously, I know you still have the championship coming up. And that's why when I say that Brad Fuller is a busy man, he literally has the championship for last year going on. Is it this week or next week?
It's we're here now. Like, I'm at Hartwell right now. So yeah, this is day 2 of practice. First time we've ever done back-to-back, and probably the last time we ever do back-to-back.
that back-to-back stuff is really difficult. And you're already exhausted after the first one. And especially as a tournament organizer, like, people don't understand, NPFL works on a bare bones crew, and they have some amazing volunteers, but the ownership and everybody that is in the leadership roles does all the work too. It's not like, hey, we give it to this tournament staff that we're just going to have maintain everything. Like, they do a little bit of everything. So it's really, really interesting that y'all are able to pull it off. I mean, especially a championship. It'd be one thing if it was like another event, but a championship, that's a big deal.
Yeah, this is I'll be honest, and like, this is the focus is a little different at a championship. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's only 42 anglers are in this year's championship. 40 guys qualified on points. 2 guys qualified last year on the win and you're in aspect of what we do. So the field is 42. I mean, man, that's a third of what we usually run. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's more about, like, just having fun with the anglers. We're going to do a big championship party. We don't call it a banquet, don't call it a dinner. Like, we're having a party Wednesday night in Anderson, South Carolina, to celebrate the year and everyone's accomplishments. Got a special deal that we're going to release there. that'll come out after the fact, but something we're starting, and I'm really excited about that. And
Dang, you
it's just
tease
cool,
it
man. So
here,
it's
man. Like, of course you're gonna tease it, and we're all gonna
well,
lose our
it's
minds, kind of wondering what it is.
well, it's kind of a personal thing to us.
Yeah,
You know what I
I
mean? Like
understand.
it's something it's something that we've wanted to do from the inception,
Hmm.
but the company had to grow and mature to a point where it made sense. And
Right.
not I shouldn't even mention it, but you're right. But when it comes out, it'll make a lot of sense why we're doing it the way we're doing it. I hope a little bit of common sense. We've been complimented here the last few days on having common sense, and I don't know how common it is, Andrew, to be honest with you. But
Common sense is hard to come by these days,
yeah,
unfortunately. But I will say this. I've never talked badly about NPFL. Won't, honestly. Um, when we fog delayed on that final day, I was kind of like, "What the heck are we doing?" Because I'd come up from the bottom end of the lake because I was staying on the bottom end, and it was clear the whole way. And I'm like, don't let this come and settle in. And
right.
like, and then y'all like, all right, we're going. And I was like, thank goodness, because it was one of those things that it would have been really easy to kind of fall in the trap of the fog delay, but it really shouldn't have been. And I do applaud you for that, because at first I was like, what in the heck are we doing? Like, this
Yeah,
doesn't need to be
and
fog delayed.
it probably took a little longer than what I wanted, but I really wanted to make sure, because the way that fog came in from the upper end and the lower end,
Hmm.
like we can assume that it's runnable. I actually put Sean out there in a boat to make sure that it was manageable. Like it wasn't
Right,
going to be perfect, but look, man, it's a professional league, professional anglers. I
right.
do feel the need to protect you guys from yourselves sometimes,
Oh,
just being
absolutely.
very, very honest about it. And if we don't own that water, and I knew there were other tournaments going on that were probably coming up the river,
Right,
and like it just it made me kind of pause for a second. I'm glad it worked out the way it did. There were no issues. I
right,
think you guys did a great job um, navigating that the right way, the way you're supposed to. And yeah, man, I mean, 30 minutes after we launched you guys, everything was cleared up there anyway. So, but those are that's a real time decision. You can't plan for that. You got to take the moment that you're in and just think about what you're doing. And dude, it sounds horrible, but this company is not mature enough, Andrew, where we can handle a catastrophic incident. And
right,
and and I don't want to sound callous in saying that. That's reality.
right.
And look, man, the other part is like, I like all you guys, and I want you all to come back to the ramp. And that's something that I hold very close and very dear. That I never want to put you guys in a bad spot. You can be mad at me for holding you
Right.
up for a little bit, but at least you're alive to yell at me, and I'm good with that, and I can handle it.
No doubt. And I do want to, we're going to divert a little bit. You've got the championship this week. Obviously, that's not, so for anybody wondering, I did a little spiel about making the championship before you got on. That is not for the anglers that qualified this year. That was actually for last year's. This
Yep.
group is actually allowed to use forward facing sonar. But the big thing is that I feel like y'all kind of hit a really good lucky streak. I know this is a graphic that you've looked at probably 5,000 times in the last week.
Yep.
This was a hurricane that was aimed straight at South Carolina, straight at North Carolina. And you want to talk about throwing a big old monkey wrench in there, but huge. I mean, thank goodness it turned out, because that was about to be really bad.
So I'll be honest, man. We were so kind of dug in the trenches with everything going on with AOY, just the tournament itself, all the ties, the tight weights, and all the things that Logan, I didn't even realize it was out there. And Michelle got there on Wednesday. She goes, "Hey, what do you think about these storms that are out there?" And I was like, "What are you talking?" I thought she was, I was like, "Look, that's not a funny joke."
Yeah.
And when I looked at it, Andrew, that second storm was literally the path came right down the heart of Hartwell. And dude, my heart sunk. I'm like, man, because I put a timeline on myself. Like, we have to make a call on this by X date. And if you make a call, now you got to figure out how you're going to make it up. You got to figure out where you're going to go. You got to figure out what you're going to do. Knowing that the later we go into October, the worse this threat's going to be for storms. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, look, man, for once, the weather guides. This has been a pretty good year for weather for the NPFL compared to our previous years. So, man, we're blessed. We're here. The weather looks great. The guys smashed them yesterday. They smashed them today. The weather's only going to get better for the rest of the week. So I'm very happy we didn't have to deal with that storm.
Well, that's I do believe that y'all got extremely lucky there. I'm glad. I mean, because that honestly, North Carolina, I just don't know. I mean, they're just now starting to kind of recover in some of those areas. The last thing they needed is another hurricane to drop a bunch of rain. So I know in that area, that East Tennessee, North Carolina area has definitely been through it the last year. So thankful for that. The other big news at NPFL, breaking news, NPFL amends no info rule. If you haven't been on social media, then you probably haven't seen it. But here you have it now. No info rule went to 30 days from the first day of practice, right?
Yes, sir.
First day of practice. This is actually a rule that we had at FLW on the FLW tour when I fished the FLW tour. And to me, it was the simplest way to police that rule anyway. It allowed guys to get some info, whatever. And I do think it's important that we made some adjustments, not necessarily if you needed to or didn't need to, but with the landscape of everything that's going on right now and all these failed polygraphs. And mind you, I took a polygraph at Logan Martin.
Oh, yeah, you did.
And I did pass my polygraph. And, actually Paul came up to me in the weighing line. He's like, "Hey man, I need to talk to you." And I was thinking somebody protested me or something. He's like, "Hey, I need you to take this polygraph. Don't be upset or anything." I was like, "Dude, I don't care. I ain't got nothing to hide. Let's do this thing." But with the changing landscape of all the DQs, and not necessarily on the NPFL side, but just in bass fishing in general, I do think it's important that we address it, even if there's not an issue. We're avoiding issues mainly.
Yeah, and man, and just keep me on checking this, Andrew. I've got a lot of thoughts about this. This is something that we actually had on the table for last year. Just with the forward-facing deal that we took on, we didn't feel like we wanted to bite off more than we could chew. We wanted to be able to manage it, and so we had this on the shelf since last year, and we kind of refined it. Sean and I did throughout the year. But here's a couple main points of that I want your listeners to understand. And we have these altruistic beliefs in bass fishing. And if you've never heard of these, let me know. We have a saying that, hey man, it's hard to catch somebody else's fish. Right? Like I believe that. And I listen, I've done it. I've got information. I went out and tried to catch, you give me all the juice on Hartwell, I go, and I'm like, man, Andrew sucks. He didn't give me anything. Right? So if we believe that, right, I always felt like we've put way too much emphasis on just pure information, right? Especially in the time frames that we get it. Look, man, Kyle Welcher, Patrick Walters, Andrew Upshaw, Greg Hackney, Brandon Perkins, they don't need information, right? They don't need information to catch them. And honestly, I don't believe that information, as we're talking about it in this context, really even dramatically affects the outcome of a tournament. These fish change so fast these days. Mm-hmm. So we believe that, right? So I'm trying to give some perspective on what we believe, because that when you understand what someone believes, you understand their motivations for making a change. The second thing I believe is there is so much gray area in the current architecture of the no information rule. It really puts the polygraphers, the voice stress tests, and the truth verification examiners in a really tough spot. It's kind of hard to get somebody to pop on a polygraph inconclusively if you've got so much gray area, right? And it also leads to a lot of false positives. Again, consulting with polygraphers and people that do this for a living in some of the three-letter agencies in the United States that I have access to, false positives, when you start to get into those gray areas, did I break a rule or didn't I? You just failed the polygraph. Right. If you're questioning that in your mind, so that's one. The only people that the no information rule hurt were the people who follow the rules. That's another belief, right? Like the guys who go out there and search for the edge and search for the gray area and try to live in that gray area, they do get an advantage over the guys who don't do that, right? So this move was designed to do a couple things. One, remove some of the gray area. So when you see the NPFL rules come out for 2026, we're going to cover this no information rule in a very methodical way. in section 4 in the NPFL rules. 4A is going to be at no time during any time during the season are you allowed to buy, barter, pay, or receive information exchanged for any goods or services.
Right.
So you can't go hire a guide. You
Right.
can't call a guide and say, hey, man, I'll give you 7 loose rods and reel combos if you give me all your waypoints on this lake. That's illegal.
Right.
And that may seem like a very inconsequential thing, but now that I've broken that out and it's just not one continual rule, I can ask very direct and pointed questions in the polygraph that lends itself to be more accurate. I'm all
Correct.
for that. The other thing this does, Andrew, and the most important thing to me, we've taken professional bass anglers away from the fans.
Right.
Like if you went to Logan Martin to pre-practice, I bet you stuck your head in the sand, put a hoodie on, and probably wore a disguise when you went into tackle shops because you don't want to take a chance on
Right.
your livelihood being threatened. And look, man, if you get disqualified from Logan Martin for the no information rule, you don't get your money back.
Exactly.
Right? So I understand why pros act the way they do with regards to that. I think that's wrong. I think we should be moving this in the other direction. So I want fans to be able to engage with guys.
Yeah.
Take Corey Casey's a guide on Santee Cooper. If Santee Cooper is on the schedule in October, you're telling me that Corey Casey's a guide that can't talk to anybody about fishing all year. And here's the key part of that, Andrew. If he does talk to people inside that, is he going to do better or worse in that tournament because of that?
Right.
No, I don't believe so. So that's why we took the steps with the rule, no information, what we did. Listen, man, I think it needs a major overhauling. We ran the full gamut of delete it all together and just do away with it, to don't touch it and keep it as is. And we fell somewhere in the middle for this year. And we're going to see how this goes. And we're going to talk to guys like you. We're going to talk to everybody in the field, see how you guys feel about it. And we'll continue to refine and make the NPFL better by talking to the anglers and listening to y'all's inputs.
No, and I think that's absolutely accurate. I mean, it's really important to pay attention to rules anyway, to see if you can fine tune rules to make it more efficient for any tournament trail. It doesn't matter. Even if there's not an issue at the time, if you notice that there can be or should be an issue, I think I lost him. I don't know where he went. Dang it. I'll just take him off the stage for a second. I lost him for a minute. But basically, where I'm coming from with this is when you have a rule change, and we all have rule changes from time to time, okay? It's really, really important to focus on where things go wrong. You know, I mean, we could easily go and say, this is wrong, that's wrong, or maybe this is perfect. I mean, you could just look at the rule change this year for no forward-facing sonar. There's a lot of guys that could say, hey, this is great, not good, whatever, but that's irrelevant at this point. What is important is the fact that we're constantly making changes, and I think that is a really, really, really good atmosphere as far as that goes. And we got Brad back now, though. He dropped his call.
Yeah,
But,
sorry. No, I had one of the guys call me from Hartwell, so I guess I screwed that up when I was trying to decline the call. So all good, buddy.
oh, it happens to me all the time. So hey, let's divert real quick. I mean, I know there's a lot that you can and cannot talk about. I did one of the overwhelming questions that I've gotten over the last, I'll say, 2 months. Is there an envisioned feeder trail to lead into the NPFL? Is that something that you feel like you're working to, or if you are comfortable as where it is currently?
I don't think we're ever. I wouldn't say we're comfortable where it is currently. I think certainly that's something when we started looking at expanding the business and looking at ways to service a larger population of the anglers. We have something again that we're going to release probably sometime around January 1st that is something along those lines. And dude, I don't want to talk around things. It's just, it's such in its infancy. Yeah. I'll say this. It does 2 things. It brings fans closer to the NPFL. It potentially gives grassroots anglers a direct pathway to the NPFL championship.
Okay.
So that's important as far as like, Yeah, and listen, man, I get the same question. A $200 level, kind of grassroots weekend series type thing, all the way up to, a $2,000, $2,500, something on par with the Opens and the Toyota Series. Listen, the answer is we have all those things on the shelf. Like we have, and we have 4 or 5 iterations of each one of those and what those may look like with scope and how they would be scaled. Like this is where we start. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3.
Right.
Here's the reality, and people don't want to hear this, and I get it, man. I don't want to hear this, but this is reality. The NPFL is a long, long ways from where we want the NPFL series at the top level to be. We do run a small shelter, or kind of skeleton crew, if you will. We're very efficient. We have great work ethic. We're not struggling by any means. We're more than capable. But I hesitate to pull any of that attention away from what we have going on now with the NPFL to start something before we feel like the time is right. And I know people are thirsting for it. I know people want it. But I'm not comfortable saying, yeah, man, next year I'm going to have this or I'm going to have that. I just don't feel like as a company and more so than a business. Look, man, if it was just running tournaments, done. I think we're masters at that, right? I think we're masters at logistics. I think we're masters at managing people. I think we're masters at how we interact with the anglers to get said things done, right? But there's a whole other business aspect of this company, right? And the business aspect is really, for the first time this year, really just starting to get some traction behind it as well. So I know it appears like the NPFL is this big monster. It's not. Like it's still this fragile child that we need to nurture and take care of, both from the business side and from the angler side, right? Like we're still growing and evolving. That's where our focus is. But yeah, man, we have, especially between now or when we finish up here until we launch, in the spring of next year, we spend a lot of time working on some of those side projects to further refine them and adjust them to the landscape of the current environment we're operating in right now. Right. What we thought was good last year may have changed a little bit. So for all the fans out there, listen, first of all, it's very flattering that there's such an enormous thirst for what we're doing. And I promise you, we'll get there. It's got to be the right timing. And it won't be next year for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the thing that I feel like a lot of people forget, and I mean, and not to just hop on the NPFL bandwagon here, but it really, when you start talking about having, let's just say, a feeder trail, like a Toyota Series / Open type, that costs money. You're talking not even just the landscape of the tournament itself, but maybe another trailer, maybe more trucks. You're talking more crew, maybe having to have 2 different crews that are running here and there and everywhere. I mean, and then especially if you're talking even a lower range trail, I mean, that's even more complicated when it starts coming around that as far as funding goes. And quite honestly, right now, guys, we don't talk about it enough, but I've had a lot of really in-depth conversations with a lot of really high up people in this industry. And I'm fortunate to be really good friends with quite a few of them. The tariff situation that we are currently dealing with is just now actually hitting a lot of these fishing organizations. And I'm not saying terminal organizations. I'm saying like companies like Lew's, Striking, Berkeley, Spro, all of these places that import, it's finally starting to hit. Now, if you go to Academy, Tackle Warehouse, you go to any of these product places to go buy product right now, you're seeing increased prices. It's not because Academy or Tackle Warehouse or Bass Pro Shops is trying to make more money off of you. It's simply because that's how much they're getting charged by these fishing companies to actually sell their product, because it does cost more money. What that means, though, for this industry, especially from tournament sponsorships, whether it be angler or organization, is that's actually going to cut money out of that aspect of things and make it way harder for others. I'm telling you right now, the landscape of tournament fishing right now, and I'm saying like higher end tournament fishing, is going to get tougher because so much funding has gotten cut throughout the entire scope of tournament fishing. So there's a lot of changes that are coming across the board, and not just from NPFL. Speaking of that, though, where, I know I promise you've been asked this question at least 5,000 times this week. What is your ETA on a schedule, on a championship? I saw the no info rule and I'm like, dang it, I want to see the schedule. We all want to see the schedule. What are you thinking? When are we thinking it? What you got?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and here's, I feel like we need to, from our perspective. So, like, typically we don't release our schedule if we think are somewhere around October 6th time frame is in, and man, we're waiting on other people to do some stuff, and I'm not trying to play like it's our schedule. I get it. But if we release that between the October 6th and the 15th, that'll be a release that was 2 weeks prior than the earliest we've ever done it.
Right.
Like, because we're still in our season, right? We just finished Logan Martin, and the guy's like, well, that has nothing to do with next year. Well, it kind of has everything to do with next year, just from a workflow and an efficiency standpoint, right? So yeah, I would say, Andrew, somewhere around the 6th of October, maybe sooner, but probably not. And this is how complicated this is. So we were actually lacking 3 events, but not 3 events like we didn't know we were going. We were waiting on 1 event to sign a contract, and they were in that situation where their board only meets every 45 days. They can approve a contract in 1 meeting, but they can't approve and fund in the same meeting. So yes, we're going to do it. We know where we're going. We know we're going to be there. We have to wait for the following meeting for the actual contract to get funding from said tourism board or CVB or board of whatever they want to call it, right? The other venue was waiting on a festival to pick a date. So they had 2 dates they were going to pick on the NPFL schedule. Like, we have both of these dates locked in. They were waiting on someone to tell them when they wanted to bring their festival there, and then they would pick a date off of that weekend for the NPFL event. So once they pick that date, then I've got to shoehorn the other venue into the date that they didn't take. So listen, maybe that's way more information than your viewers want, but it's a very complicated and very intricate process where one thing leans on another. And honestly, man, we're October, November, December, January, February, March. Like, if we go to March, we're 6 months out from executing that schedule. The parochial mindset of the schedules come out in August, the schedules come out in September. Hey, boys, you're going to get used to it. The NPFL schedule is going to be out in October or November every single year.
Right.
The louder you guys scream, the more we hang on to it. No, I'm just kidding. That's not true.
Oh, 100%. I agree with that.
We've been very open about what it is that we do with our schedule. Deconflicting from the other major circuits, that I think is a service not just to us and those other units. I think it's a service to the anglers that they get to fish as many professional events as they want. They get to provide their families and multiple trails, which I think they should have every right to do. And the other thing is, I don't want my sponsors that are with me for their dollars to be competing against each other in the same weekend. If we are on top of a Bassmaster Elite event and we share a common sponsor, those sponsor dollars are competing against each other and they're being diluted. And I don't think that's fair to the sponsors. Those are the major reasons we take our time, we deconflict the schedule. And obviously, man, like, that's an easy thing for us to do because we're the new kid in the block.
Uh-oh. Might have lost him. Let's pull him out for a second. But I understand the gist of where he's coming from here. It really is important to understand how the schedule is built. You got to understand they don't have a massive marketing department or somebody behind them that is building the schedule. It's literally them. It's the same guys that are putting the tournament on, communicating with the anglers, that are setting up the meetings and everything else in between. So it is a more complicated situation. It's definitely one that in the beginning, I was definitely one of the loud ones. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, dude, like, why is this taking so long? Or what is going on with this? And I was asking a lot of questions because I truly believe if you ever want the right answer about anything, you ask questions. You don't just assume anything. You always ask, and that way you don't ever have to guess on what's actually going on or not going on. And then you don't have to complain about saying, well, I thought I knew what was going on. or what? I asked, but nobody told me anything. Like, I would rather at least know exactly where people are at and why people are in a certain situation. But that is a vitally important thing. The next question I'm going to ask him, though, is the championship going to release at the same time as the schedule? I'm assuming it will, but you never know. Make sure you drop your questions over there on the side. We got one of them answered. I hope that was an answer to a question that some of you wanted. And when I'm talking about a question, here was one of the questions from ZK Outdoors. Bobby Colston had a question here. So when it comes to where NPFL is going and what they've been to, it's definitely important to kind of see those things. And as far as scheduling, Bobby actually says it best here. Scheduling has to be a nightmare. It absolutely has to be. I mean, when you talk about 3 major tournament organizations, that's not to mention the Bassmaster Opens. That's not to mention the Toyotas and everything else in between. Finding weekends, there's only so many weekends in the year that undoubtedly you will see that being an issue. I mean, as far as scheduling goes, Skeeter actually commented in. He actually commented before. He said he didn't want to talk about a DQ because he was unfortunately DQ'd over a very silly situation, in my opinion. But nonetheless, it did happen. But championship release before the season would be great, so we know what we're shooting for. I tend to agree with that completely. I mean, I think it's important to understand where you're going before the season. I know the Bassmaster Elites usually do theirs before the season kicks off, and if it isn't, it's like within one tournament. One big question I'm going to have for him if I do get him back, I might not. You never know. But one big question I'd like to ask him is, are we going to start the year sooner? Are we going to hit that March date, or are we going to hit that January, February date starting the season out? Either way, I'm good. It seems like, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong here, most of y'all fish throughout the South. Some of you are up north, which is super cool that you watch my show. But when you fish throughout the South, January and February, you have a lot of different factors going on. Number one is weather. Weather can be absolutely abysmal. You could have flooding. So if you go to a river, you're subject to a lot of floods. Insanely cold temperatures is obviously a big thing. But the number one thing that we've noticed over the last few years is that is when forward-facing sonar absolutely dominates, where in other tournaments where like you would just go fishing, there's a distinct difference between going fishing there and not. So I do think that is a big question mark for me personally, is when will we start the season? I prefer to start it in January, February, and I'd love to start on Sam Rayburn where I could go rip a lipless crankbait out of grass. That'd be awesome. Or, starting in Santee this year was awesome. I had a really amazing first day. I can say that because the rest of the tournament sucked. But I had a really amazing first day at that particular event. And, anytime you go to a big fish fishery and that's how you kick off the season, that is really, really unique. So the last question I'm going to ask him, and y'all get to hear it first, so he won't be prepared for it if he does, in fact, come back. He might not. I might have ran him off. You never know, truly. But the big question is, for me, will be where I've got it written down right here. His phone overheated. That's what I just got a message from him saying. That's hilarious. And I do take notes, by the way. That's what I keep looking at my phone for. But my big question for him is, will it not be an East Coast driven trail? And that is going to be a big deal. Let's see. When it gets done overheating, jump back on for just a couple minutes. Jump. Minutes. Sorry. But is it going to be more of an East Coast based trail? So this year we came my direction, which I say my direction, like Texas. We came to Oklahoma one time. The rest of the events were Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, New York, And was that it? I feel like I'm missing one. Let's see. Douglas, Norman, Eufaula, Santee. God, I know I'm missing St. Lawrence River. And does anybody else know? Comment below. I don't remember what the other one was. There has to be another one. Or did I hit it right? Dang, it's going to drive me crazy now. It's probably one that I did really bad in, and I'm just trying to block it out of my memory. But Logan Martin, duh. That was the last one. That's the one we just came from. Wow. I'm so spaced out right now. And mainly because our season is spread out, and it is a little bit more complicated. So Skeeter actually was fishing the event. And if I remember correctly, he posted something on social media that he was throwing a frog, which I would dare to say that Skeeter Fowler caught most of his fish through a lot of tournaments this year throwing a frog, which really shines about what forward facing sonar or lack of forward facing sonar has done for NPFL anglers and really getting them back to the basics of fishing and getting them back to where, like how they came about and all that kind of stuff. So big, interesting things. Oh, I did. I said Crosby a Fowler. I'm so sorry. I did. I had a really good friend named Skeeter Fowler. He actually did fish the NPFL for a long time and passed away from COVID, when that came through. So I do accidentally say that about Skeeter Crosby sometimes because I am so used to, or I was used to talking to Skeeter Fowler a lot. So I apologize there, Skeeter Crosby. That's my bad. So, what questions should we ask Brad Fuller if he comes back on? What would you want to know? Where is the direction that the NPFL should or should not go? That's the big question. And maybe we have to come on for a part 2 with him because as it's looking right now, there's a legitimate chance he does not come back. So, I don't think I ran him off. I just think he had some phone issues, so that's just kind of part of it. So let's just go ahead and put a stop to it now. Let's go ahead and end this show for right now. I hate to do that because, it's definitely something that I would really like to finish the conversation that we had going. Actually, Skeeter brought up a very good topic, top 10 plaques. That is something that I would love to talk to him about as well. Because right now on the NPFL, you get a first place trophy and that's it. First. There's no other trophy, no second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever. Zero other trophies. Zero. So when I got third at St. Lawrence River, I didn't get anything for it, which is fine. I mean, I got paid, which was amazing, especially with my Bass Cat money. I'd added an additional $7,500 to my paycheck, which was absolutely amazing. And we were told that Bass Cat did re-up with the NPFL, which is really big news as well. This is 100%. Bobby Colson said, will they continue to schedule around the elites? The answer is yes. And the reason is, and he kind of mentioned it at the last part where he was on, is they want to be able to give professional anglers that fish MLF, that fish the elites, the opportunity to fish more than just their trails tournament. So as it sits right now, you're going to see NPFL anglers be a good mixture of elite series guys, your local guys, open pros, things like that. Obviously, MLF this year, you didn't see a big group of anglers coming from there simply because they did not have they had more conflicts over there. I mean, you saw Zach Burge do it, and he dang sure almost made the championship. And I don't even know if he fished every event. I know he didn't fish every day of the event, so that's a huge. I mean, golly, dude, like just was on fire this year. So that was really, really interesting to see him finish one place out, and I hated to see that because he was really, really close. But I am curious to see if they bring more over. A big thing also that I think you're going to see throughout this industry right now, and it's going to be definitely be a big mix up coming in for next year is MLF, obviously with Bass Pro Tour nixed quite a few anglers this year. I want to say it was quite a few. I was like 20 or so. I don't even know. Where are those anglers going to go? And I'm paraphrasing. It might not be 20. It might be 8. It might be 12. It might be 16. I don't know. I don't know the exact number. I just know there's quite a few guys that aren't fishing the Bass Pro Tour this year. Where are those anglers going to go? Are they going to land in the new MLF Pro Circuit? Which I say new because it was the Invitationals 1 year, it was Pro Circuits, the FLW Tour, it was kind of a lot of different things. Is that where they're going to land? Because I do know that they're revamping their payouts at MLF. They're doing a lot of work behind the scenes to get those even better than what they are, which kudos to those guys. Are you going to see guys go join the Opens, which I I love Hank Weldon at Bass and people at Bass, like they do a good job. The Opens are just the gauntlet of fishing, and it was really, for me personally, I'm not going to speak for anybody else. For me personally, it took the joy out of fishing significantly. And so, do you see guys go that direction? Do you see them join the NPFL? Do you see him just retire? I saw David Fritz announce his retirement. That was his last event, was the NPFL event on Logan Martin. Bernie Schultz retired. I mean, you had Rick Clunn retire. Yeah, I mean, you've had a lot of guys step back. Where does that end? I mean, obviously it doesn't ever end because you're going to have guys retire for the rest of tournament fishing, simply because you got guys that have been in it for a long time and they just age out. They don't want to do it anymore. They have more important priorities, whatever it may be. I mean, I was almost retired this year. And I'd say retired. I mean, I don't, like, it is what it is. But I was going to hang it up this season, and I'm not saying like after this season. I mean, before the season even started, I was pretty much done with tournament fishing. Only because it's just not gone a direction that I really like. And that's not saying I agree or don't agree with certain things. I just don't like where it is right now. And I once again, like I said about the Opens, I felt like it took a lot of the joy out of fishing for me. And at the end of the day, like we do certain things like this because we enjoy them. And that's why you should do things like this. So when it takes the joy out, it makes it really hard to want to go do it. So, but I'm glad to find the NPFL. I was actually going to join it about 4 years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago, whenever it was. We had a lot of discussions about it, and then I just decided not to go that direction at the last minute. I'm glad I did now, though, especially with the no forward facing sonar stuff. It's really brought back a lot of those memories of, let's just go figure out how to catch bass. And I really enjoy that. Like, I really do enjoy the mystery of, holy crap, where I'm going to catch a fish. Brad actually mentioned it earlier in the show that, when it comes to getting information and stuff like that, a lot of times it hurts you. And truth be told, through my career, anytime I've gotten information, it's hurt me significantly. And when I say information, legally obtained information, but information nonetheless, it's always made me focus too much on what they said instead of focusing on what was actually going on. Like, and when I say what's going on, like what is happening, the conditions changing, and everything that is going on. And that is a big lesson for anybody that's going to a body of water. I get phone calls all the time from friends of mine. It's like, hey man, what would you go throw here? Or how would you go catch them there? And I'm just like, just go figure it out. And I'm not trying to be rude, but every day on a body of water is different. Every week on a body of water is different. Does the water come up? Has there been a big storm coming? If I go tell you to go fish deep brush piles with a 10-inch worm because it was hot and sunny and calm one day when I was fishing, and then when you get to the same body of water and I tell you that and you go out and fish those deep brush piles with a big worm, you're probably not going to catch them. But you'd have probably been, if you'd have paid attention to the conditions, you'd have probably done way better in the event by just understanding what you knew how to do and how to go catch fish. But a lot of times as anglers, we get too caught up with what we were told. And so it's definitely interesting when it comes to that kind of stuff. I do agree with him as far as the information aspect of things. That 30 days off limits, we really never had any problems at FLW when we did that. I mean, we had a couple anglers that decided they were going to still buy information. They got caught buying information, and then they got in trouble for buying the information. So, like, and when I say buying information, bartering or trading equipment for things or hiring guides. I mean, there was literally an angler on the FLW tour. I'm not going to mention any names because I'm not trying to tear apart people's lives. But there was literally an angler on the FLW tour that hired a guide before one of the tournaments. And I'm saying like before one of the tournaments, like a week before off limits started, hired a guide. Okay. Got caught, got in trouble. So um, that's just kind of where I'm at with all that stuff. And Skeeter Crosby actually said it's best to show up and figure them out on the conditions you're dealt with. I completely agree. I mean, that's what I did at Logan Martin. I'm not gonna lie to you. I rolled up to that tournament. I was actually thinking on the way there because usually I do all of this big map study and all these things to kind of get ready for an event. And I'm sitting there trying to get ready for it, and I'm like, I don't even know like what's going on in that lake. I hadn't talked, like I never got info before the season started. I hadn't looked at any tournament results. I mean, I'd been there during a spawn event using scope a handful of years ago for the Bassmaster Open. I didn't even have that good of an event then, but definitely was something that I was doing. I mean, because we were all doing it. Um, but the one thing I did have in my back pocket is I've been to the Coosa River itself in the fall a couple times fishing, whether it be Neely Henry, Lay Lake, some of the other chain lakes down through there. And I kind of had an idea of what to do and how to do it. And so I just had to kind of adapt it to the lake that I was currently on, which was Logan Martin. I'm glad. I actually, for the really cool thing about Logan Martin is I practiced by the dam on one end and I practiced by the dam on the other end, and I felt like I covered the whole entire lake. And I mean when I say like I fished from one end of the lake to the other in 3 days of practice. And that's the one unique thing about being on a little bit smaller lake is you can a lot of times do that. Certain times it hurts you. I practiced up the river quite a bit at that particular body of water. I had a really good practice up there one day. Caught like 40 fish or something. And I never even went up there in the tournament. Not one day. Not even for 5 minutes. I didn't even go above takeoff whatsoever. Not even 100 yards past takeoff in the tournament. And so when you do make those decisions, I mean, when you practice the whole lake, you have to mark off a section of the lake that you won't be fishing. And that's what I had to do at that particular tournament, because if I would have gone and tried to fish up the river and all the way down by the other dam, I'd have been spending more time running than I would have been fishing. And in a place like that, you need to be fishing. You need to have a bait in the water as much as you can and making as many casts as you can. That second day when I caught him on a buzz bait, I literally put my troll motor down at the mouth of one pocket, or I guess the mouth of a creek, pocket, whatever. And I didn't pick my troll motor up for like 2 hours throwing a buzz bait. And I just threw it around everything for like 2 hours. And I caught two. One was like a 3.5, 3 3/4, and the other one was a 2-pounder, which 2-pounders on this particular body of water were gold. And so, I mean, and that's how I did it. And the third day, I went stupid and I just went jumping around and fishing all these places instead of just putting my troll motor down and going fishing. And that's what sometimes we have a problem doing. So yeah, overall, good show with Brad. I didn't get to ask him everything I wanted to. Like I said, I might have him on for another show, and maybe I'll get the answers to questions and do a video about some of the questions that I've asked him. But guys, I really do appreciate y'all being on. I apologize for all the in and outs of guests and things like that on this particular show, and I'm sorry for missing last week with so much on the line. I didn't want to have like a pre-recorded show. I thought that was kind of weird. I don't like doing that. I'd rather just be live. We can ask questions. We can do whatever we want to do. But thank you for bearing with me. I got to get ready to go get Kane. So guys, thank you again, and I'll see you on the next one.